I booked the Airbnb for a 3-day business trip, pitching a new product to a tech firm in the city. The listing was pristine. Modern row home in an up-and-coming neighborhood. Gentrified, basically. Exposed brick, Edison bulbs, trendy street art, and a juiced-up cleaning fee. Whatever. It looked clean, and it was close to the office. The street was quiet when I arrived. A little too quiet. Some of the houses still had boarded windows and chain-link fences. Others, like the one I was staying in, had just been flipped. New paint, potted succulents, a smart lock on the door. I dragged my suitcase up the stoop, punched in the code, and stepped inside. It smelled like lemon-scented disinfectant, and faintly, beneath that, something musty, old. But everything looked spotless, too spotless even, like it had been scrubbed raw. No personal touches, just furniture, cold and functional. After settling in, I decided to walk to the corner store to grab something for dinner. It was only 2 blocks away, but even in that short walk I felt eyes on me. People sitting on stoops, silent, watching, not hostile, just weary. I was the outsider. On my way back, arms full of groceries, I saw him. A man sitting on the stoop of my rental. He was maybe in his late 40s, wearing a worn army jacket and jeans stiff with dirt. He didn't move when I stepped closer. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. He looked up slowly. His eyes were sunken, tired but clear. "I used to live here," he said. I froze. "Before they gutted it," he continued. "Ripped out the walls, painted over everything, kicked me out so they could rent it to people like you." I shifted the bag in my arms. I'm sorry, I didn't know," I said. "Look, if you're in need, I can give you some cash." Before I could reach for my wallet, he stood up fast, too fast, and spat on the ground near my feet. "I don't want your money," he said. I took a step back. "What do you want then?" I asked. He looked at me for a long moment, then smiled. A slow, crooked smile that chilled me. "Oh, you'll see," he said. Then he turned and walked down the sidewalk, vanishing into the shadow of an alley without another word. I stood there for a while, heart pounding. The smart lock beeped as I punched in the code. Once inside, I locked every bolt and chain I could find. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing things, movement outside the house, a rustle by the fence, a thud on the porch like something or someone stepping lightly. I looked through the window, but the street was empty. At 3 a.m., the doorbell rang. A single ding. I jumped out of bed, heart hammering. I crept to the door and peered through the peephole. No one. I waited. Nothing. I opened the app to contact the host. "Someone came to the door at 3 a.m., I said. "Not sure what's going on, but this is freaking me out. Can you check your cameras?" No reply. I turned on every light in the place and stayed up until dawn. The next morning, the host finally messaged me back. "Hi, sorry, just saw this," she said. "Strange. The front camera's been offline since yesterday. Maybe a glitch. I'll try to reset it remotely. Let me know if anything else happens." I went to my meetings, tried to act normal. Smiled, shook hands, but the man's words echoed in my mind. "You'll see," he said. When I got back that evening, the smart lock wouldn't accept the code. 3 times I tried. Then on the 4th, it beeped green and clicked open. Inside, something felt off. The air smelled different, damp, almost moldy. I walked into the kitchen. One of the chairs was pulled slightly out from the table. I hadn't left it that way. I checked the closets, under the bed. Nothing. Everything looked the same, but it felt wrong. That night, I was determined to sleep, but sleep didn't come. At 2:53 a.m., I heard it again. Footsteps, slow, crunching the gravel just outside the window, then a tap. Not the bell this time, just a tap on the glass. I stayed still, not daring to breathe. Another tap, then a whisper. "You don't belong here." It was his voice. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and called the owner directly, straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. On the third try, she answered, "What the hell is going on with this place?" I hissed. "That man you said was trespassing. He's back. He's outside the window." There was a pause. Too long. Then, "What man?" "The guy you kicked out. He said he used to live here. He's been harassing me, ringing the bell, tapping the windows. I want a refund or something." She was silent again. Finally, she whispered, "Sir, that house hasn't had a tenant since the renovation last year. The man who lived there before, it was condemned. He refused to leave, said the house was his family's. He died inside, froze to death." I felt the blood drain from my face. "You never saw anyone," she said softly. "No one's had keys since the remodel." I turned around slowly. The kitchen chair was pulled out again, and in the seat was the man, smiling. My wife and I needed a break, not from each other, never from each other, but from everything else. Roommates, noise, traffic, the claustrophobia of sharing a too small apartment with too many people. We couldn't afford much, but we found a secluded Airbnb cabin 2 hours outside the city. Rustic, private. No neighbors for miles, the listing promised. Just trees, stars, and silence. We packed light, snacks, firewood, and a few bottles of wine, and left before noon on Friday. By the time we turned onto the gravel road leading to the cabin, we were already exhaling. The city slid off our shoulders like a too heavy coat. The cabin was exactly as described. Wooden, small, but cozy. A front porch with a swinging bench, a tiny kitchen, and a fireplace that crackled like something out of a dream. We didn't even bother unpacking at first. We just collapsed onto the couch, our limbs tangled, the fire warming our feet. It felt perfect. That night, after dinner and too much wine, we curled into bed. I woke around 3 a.m. to pee and found myself just staring at the ceiling for a moment. There was a smoke detector mounted directly above the bed. I don't know why it struck me as odd. Maybe because I didn't remember seeing one in the living room near the fireplace. Or maybe because I could see a tiny green light blinking inside it. That shouldn't have been there. The next morning, I dragged a chair from the kitchen, climbed up, and examined it. "What are you doing?" my wife asked sleepily from the bed. "There's a camera in this thing," I said. She sat up fast. "What?" I unscrewed the plastic cover and held it in my hand. It wasn't a smoke detector at all. Not really. It looked like one, but inside, behind the vented plastic, was a tiny camera lens. Blinking. Watching. We both just stared at it, not knowing what to say. "Maybe it's a security thing?" she offered. "For burglars?" "Above the bed?" We stared at the host right away, tried to keep it calm. "Hey, we noticed there's what looks like a camera in the smoke detector above the bed. Can you explain?" I wrote. No reply. An hour passed. Then 2. We debated leaving, but we'd paid for the whole weekend, and it was supposed to be our only time alone in months. So we decided to stay, but covered the fake smoke detector with a dish towel and duct tape we found in a drawer. It made us feel marginally better. That night, it felt harder to relax. We kept the lights on longer than usual, laughed a little too loud, tried to pretend everything was fine. But it wasn't. Not really. Around 2 a.m., I woke again. I don't know what did it. Maybe instinct. The fire had long gone out, and the room was bathed in pale moonlight. The towel was on the floor. I sat up slowly. "Babe?" I whispered. "Did you move the towel?" She stirred next to me, still asleep. The chair I'd used earlier to climb up was now in the middle of the room. I hadn't moved it. I stared up at the detector. The green light was gone. Now it was red. I reached over and shook her awake. "What?" she mumbled. "The light's red now." She blinked, sat up, and followed my gaze. We both stared in silence. Then we heard it. Whirr. A mechanical click, like a lens adjusting. That was it. We were done. We packed everything in 10 minutes, barely speaking. Every creak of the floorboards felt amplified. Outside, the woods were pitch black. The cabin, once cozy, now loomed behind us like a trap that had almost sprung shut. We drove until we hit the highway. I checked my phone. Finally, bars. The Airbnb host had responded. There's no camera. The smoke detector is just old. Please don't tamper with it again. No apology, no explanation. We didn't go back to the city. Not right away. We found a cheap hotel off the highway and stayed the rest of the weekend there. The front desk had too many cameras in the lobby, but for once I welcomed them. They were visible, honest. We reported the listing to Airbnb. They took it down, temporarily. A week later, the same property was relisted under a new name, a new host. Different profile picture, same house, same ceiling, same fake smoke detector. We called the police, filed a report. No one followed up. A month passed. We tried to forget. But some nights when the lights are out, I swear I see a blinking red dot in the dark. And sometimes in dreams, I hear the faint mechanical click. Like a lens, adjusting, watching, still watching. I rented the Airbnb because of the pool, not the location, not the price, not the rustic charm the listing boasted about. It was the pool. Private, secluded, shaded by tall cypress trees, the kind of place where you could float in silence and forget the rest of the world existed. After the year I'd had, 2 deaths in the family, a breakup, and a layoff, I needed silence more than anything. The first 2 days were perfect. I spent most of my time floating, reading, dozing in the shade with a beer sweating in my hand. The owners lived in a house a few acres away, but the guest house was entirely mine. There was even a sign by the gate. Private property, guests only. I liked that. Clear boundaries. On the 3rd afternoon, I returned from a grocery run to find 2 people lounging by the pool. A man and a woman, early 30s, maybe. He wore aviators and a gold chain. She was in a red bikini, her long black hair slick from a swim. They looked like they belonged there, too comfortable, too settled in. "Hey," I said, trying not to sound rude. "Can I help you?" The man grinned. "Nah, we're good," he replied. "Place looks great. Nice score, dude." I blinked. "This is my rental," I said. He laughed. "It was ours last week," he said. "We just came back to take a dip. Hope that's cool." "It's not," I said, more firmly. "You're not supposed to be here." The woman stood up, dripping water onto the stone. "Don't be uptight," she said. "We were just missing it. It's not like we're hurting anything." "I'd like you to leave," I said. They looked at each other, then back at me. The man sighed and stood. "All right, chill, man, we're going," he said. But they didn't. Not really. I watched from the window as they slowly gathered their things. Towels, a cooler, 2 half-smoked joints on a stone ashtray. They took their time. The man winked at me as they slipped through the gate and disappeared down the gravel path toward the woods. I thought that was it. That night, I sat out on the patio with a drink, the pool glowing soft blue under the underwater lights. The air was thick with cicadas, peaceful again, until I heard a splash. I stood up fast, nearly spilling my drink. Another splash. I moved to the edge of the patio and stared. A figure was in the water, swimming silently, long, slow strokes. The woman, and on the other side of the pool, the man sat cross-legged on a lounger, just watching her. His face turned toward me, but I couldn't see his expression in the dark. I stormed out. "You need to leave. Now," I said. The man didn't move. "We left earlier, didn't we?" he replied. I told him, "This is trespassing." I'll call the police. Go ahead, the woman said, emerging from the water. You'll sound crazy. You don't even know our names. That stopped me. I didn't. They'd never introduced themselves. There was no car parked nearby, no sign they'd walked in from the road. How did you even get here? I asked. The man smiled. This pool remembers us. We were part of it before you. We're still part of it. I backed away slowly, locked the patio door behind me, called the Airbnb host. Voicemail. I tried again. Still voicemail. I didn't sleep that night. Every hour, I checked the window. The pool was empty, but the lounger cushions were wet like someone had sat there after swimming. The next morning, I packed my bag. I couldn't explain why. Maybe it was just the look in their eyes, or the fact that they weren't angry or aggressive. They were calm, way too calm. Like they belonged, and I didn't. I loaded my suitcase into the car and turned the key. Nothing. Just a click. I tried again. Click. Battery was fine. I'd driven it the day before. I called a tow. It would take hours. I stayed inside, curtains drawn, phone in hand. I kept glancing toward the back window, but the pool was still. Late that afternoon, I stepped outside again. They were back. The man sat on the edge of the pool, feet in the water, tracing slow circles. The woman was floating on her back, eyes closed. I didn't say anything this time. You're leaving, the man said without looking at me. Yes, I replied. We don't mind you, the woman called, still floating. But the place keeps what it wants. Maybe it doesn't want to let you go. I turned and walked back inside. That night, I watched the pool again, but they were gone. Just the wind in the trees, the occasional hoot of an owl. Then I noticed something. The underwater lights were off. I hadn't turned them off. I flipped the switch near the patio door. Nothing. Suddenly, the lights flared on. The pool was filled, not with water, but with them. Dozens of them. Pale bodies swimming silently, drifting just beneath the surface. All of them with vacant eyes and lazy smiles. Like the man, like the woman. Watching me from below, I screamed and stumbled back. When I looked again, the pool was empty. Just blue water, just the still night. The next morning, my car started on the first try. I didn't ask questions. I didn't leave a review. I don't even remember the drive home, just the cold feeling that clung to me for days after, like I'd touched something that never fully let go. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I see her, floating, or him, smiling. And in my dreams, I'm swimming, deeper and deeper, and something is pulling me down.